Welcome back, my favorite developers. This is part two of the server router client project, and well, this has been a uh, fun one. You may remember from my first project, if not, go back and watch my old video with my setup. What I had was I had a client who logged into a router, and that router would then log into a server. And with this setup, basically, we had to request a file from the server. The server then had to send the client a file, and then the client would have to play it. There was another scenario where the client would have to send a text document to the server. The server would take the text document, turn it all uppercase, and send it back to the client and display it. Um, those things were still part of this project, but it of course expanded. So the requirements were that we had to have clients log into a router, and that router then logs into a server. But we also had another set of clients that logs into a router, and that router also logs into a server. Um, these servers then need to communicate. And the reason for this, the end specs were that I had to be able to have a client request a client information from a server. That server was going to look and not be able to find that client, and then it was going to ask the next server for that client information. Once that client information is found, it's going to take that information and send it back to client one, and they establish a P2P connection between just those two computers. So doing this project, we didn't want to stop there. We said, well, what if they later want to add a third server or a fourth or a 10th? And so what we did was we added one more step to this project by adding what we're calling a watchtower, or what is also could be called a server router. And the purpose of the server router is that when a server comes online, it makes a quick call to that server router and says, this is my machine information. The server router says, great, I got you, goodbye, and they hang up. Each server does this. And then when a server needs to communicate with other servers, it will call the watchtower back and say, do you have a current list of all servers that are logged in? And that server will reply back, here's the list, thank you, goodbye, and they hang up again. Then the server can go through that list of all the other machines that are logged in and pass information back and forth. I also wanted to be able to send files I wanted to send files from server 2 all the way over to these clients as well. So these clients who are logged into the first server during the first project, they were only able to download files from here. But I wanted them to be able to say, hey, what all files exist? And so this server calls the watchtower, says what all servers exist, it tells it, and then it contacts all the servers and says, hey, can I have your file list? And it collects a list of files. Once the client makes the decision which file it wants, that server says, okay, is it me? If it's not me, then I'm going to call the server that it is. I'm going to download that file temporarily from that server, and then I'm going to pass that on back over to the client. So that was one piece of upgrade. The other thing is, how do these clients communicate once they're connected through the P2P? So what I made there was a chat room. So when the client actually comes on, it says, I want to create a chat room. And so that server then knows, hey, I have a client that's willing to have a conversation. When the next client logs in and says, I'm looking for chat rooms, this server is going to contact the watchtower. The watchtower is going to send it a list of the servers. Then the server is going to go through and contact all the servers and say who on your server is ready to have a chat. And each server will pass back a list to that server router. That server router will pass it back to the client, and the client will enter into its own little application, basically, that is a chat room, and it will interpret that list that was sent to it from the server, so it knows who it can log into. The client then makes a choice, and then it dials out to the other client that has established a chat room, and it's just kind of sitting there waiting for someone to talk to them. Once they're communicating, they could send a file back and forth between each other. So let's dive in and see how this turned out. Well, step one, I had to bring the server router online. It is. Then when I bring the server up, the server's like, I need information and to be logged in. Because I'm a little bit lazy, I went ahead and had it pre-set up to where if I'm not changing the server name, I could just press enter. But if I do change the server name, this will update. So next time it will save as the new field. But So yeah, I want to call it server 1. I want to say this is the folder for my server 1 and enter my port number, and it's going to be 5556 in this case. And the router IP address, which is this, which you could see the machine is logged in and or is on the internet, and its IP address is this, and its external IP address is that. None of this is going to be external IP, so I'm doing this all local, so I'm going to leave it as the 127. So the server is logged on, and this right here is an important piece of information. This is what a stringified version of the machine container looks like. Machine container is an object that I have built into here that it stores all the information about the machine, the name of the machine, the IP address, the external, the username, the port number. This is the port number for the router to call the server. It verifies, is this a server or is this a router? What's the IP address for the router to call? And that's what this container is. But when I send information back and forth between a router or a server or another server or even to the client, I can't send the object. I have to send this as a string. So this object turns into a string, but then also once I build the object, I could use that string and fill out all the information in there. And this is how I pass the machine information back and forth between the servers, the router, and the client. The router did the same thing here for logging in. So now the router's logged in and ready to go. The client's like, okay, I just need an IP address, and since I'm doing this all locally, at least for this video, you type in that information, the IP, the port number, oops, and then the port number for the router was 5678, so 678. And then now we are connected. So the client has connected to the router. The router has called, and you can see here that I have some stuff going on. Hello, who's calling? I'm the client, blah, blah, blah. It talks over to the server. The server gets the connection established, and the client is ready to go. So from this, the server then sends back this information. The server is like, I need to know who you are, so log in. So the client's going to go ahead and log in. And what port number do you want to use? And now this is for when we establish a chat room later. So the client will probably preset up that they're going to have this port open. And I went with 5588. And let me make this a little bit bigger. So yep, once it connects, success, you're logged in. I have a little fun Bo Burnham pop up. And then enter the number of the thing you want to do. So you might remember from the first project that I had some of these, the echo, the uppercase text file. 3 and 4 are technically different. 3 now requests files from all servers, and 4 can send a file to only the server that you're logged into. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to request a file from the server. So I hit 3, boom. And you can see here that on my server 1, I have these files, and I have this folder. On server 2, I have this file. So I could request a file from any one of these, from server 1 or server 2. My server 2 is logged in on another machine, and so this is reaching out across over to there to get it. So if I press 7, it will ask me where do I want to store the file. I want to get it here. Press enter, and the file is being received, and I just rickrolled myself. Ignore these errors. This is something to do with VLC. It actually has no effect on this. All these other things are working. If I press 1 to enter into echo, I've entered into the echo, and it echoes just fine. VLC is just having some kind of issues. This is it's a weird bug with VLC on Linux. Ignore it. Anyways, now if I want to send a file to a server, I can come in here. Let me create a new file. So I have this, and I don't know, I'm just gonna put some information in there. Boom. So now I have a file that I can now send to the server. I can only send it to the server that I'm logged in as, so server 1 is where I'm logged in. But send file to server, and I want to send this. And so now it's been added to the library. If I request the file again, I can see my superman.txt has now been loaded to my server 1, and I don't want to download, so I'm going to hit X. Then from here, I can start a chat room. Now I need to go and get some clients logged in, so 1 second. Okay, so on my other machine, I logged a few people into a chat room, and so I'm going to join a chat room. So when I hit this, now this is important. This is no longer functioning on the server or the router. This is all happening right here just on the client. And it's happening through these 3 Java files. We have a client chat room and a client chat room incoming. And this one isn't used yet. It will be used when we're going to do a file exchange. The client chat room incoming, its sole purpose is to just listen. So when a string comes in, it basically wants to see, is it one of these coded features? If not, I want to display the message. So that way you have a chat constantly going. I want to start a conversation here with Charlie. So I'm going to press 2, and we are connected. And I can say hello. And over on Charlie's machine, Charlie could reply, hi. And so it comes back over here. Pretty cool, at least I think. I added into here a slash handler. So when I press slash, it will let me know, hey, you have the following commands available. Exit, update who's in the room, so I can leave Charlie and go talk to somebody else, or I could send a file. So I'm going to say send a file. And this is initializing the file transfer window. Really what it's doing is it's closing down this chat room, closing off the circuit, and then it's opening up a new, socket, and then it's opening up a new socket for the client file exchange. This was mostly because I was having trouble with the constant incoming being its own thread. I was having syncing issues between the two. So I decided the best thing to do is just close the chat room down, open up a new room that is the client file exchange. Then we change the file, and then it goes right back into the chat room, and it knows, okay, these 2 people already are going to talk to each other. It doesn't ask me to select who do I want to start chatting with again. So to the user's perspective, they don't actually leave the chat room, but reality is they are actually leaving the chat room and they're going into this file exchange. Over on the client machine, it says press any key to continue. Sorry, you can't see it. It's a different computer. And it's basically asking, hey, they want to send you a file. Do you accept? Yes. Once that happens, I see that I have my debug still on, but it comes over here and it's like, okay, where do you want to send this? And so I want to send them this video. So I'm sending them the video, and it's going to create the file and it's going to send it. And over on the client side, I'm going to say where I want to store it. So I'm going to put where I want to store this. Okay, so now we're back in the chat. So hello. And Charlie's going to say hi. So they're communicating again. So as I was editing the video, I realized you didn't actually get to see what happened on the other side. So I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to have Charlie send Alice back over the exact same video. So over here on the other machine, I'm going to go ahead and initiate that we're going to do a file transfer. And here it just says press the NA key to continue, so I do. And do I wish to accept this file transfer? So yeah, I do. And then I'm going to have them send the exact same file. Oops, that's the one I want. Where is it located? Okay, here it is. So it's now over here on client 2 machine. And I'm going to have the file sent back. And over here, I'm just going to have it drop into my folder here on my client 1 machine. So, doop. And it plays. Oh, popped up on my second monitor. So, and the file loads and plays. Again, we're getting those weird VLC errors. You can ignore them. But it has put me back into the chat room, and so we can have that conversation. Hello. And Charlie can say hi. So we're communicating. All right, back to previous recording. And then when we're done, of course, we can look at the slash handler. We see the exit. And exit, I'm back in. It logs me back into the server. Where I can either start another chat room, send or request another file, or so on and so forth from there. But this has been the second part of the project. Let me know what you think of it. I had a lot of fun doing this. This was definitely a lot of work, especially trying to make sure that they're communicating well back and forth between each other. It was really hard sometimes to debug because there was a message not being passed, but it's tough to figure out where, and it's not easy just to set up debugs and go through a linear path of code. You would have to go through parts of the code on the server, and then you have to jump over to the router and go through some more parts of the code, and then jump over to the client and go through some more parts of the code. And you wanted to be careful when you're debugging that way to not go too far, because sometimes when you take too many steps, you missed where the error happened. And that was very challenging because before this class, pretty much everything is kind of following some kind of linear path. I've worked with threads before, of course, but you can kind of almost say, okay, that's happening, and that's one thing that's going to keep on happening either over and over if it's a thread that's in a constant loop. But managing between two different 2, 3, sometimes even 4 separate files that are happening simultaneously, but they have to pass messages back and forth between each other. And then also adding in the other crux of part of this is over on a second computer. It was really tough to debug on a lot of pieces. But I think the group stepped up and we got through the challenges, and I really enjoyed this, and I hope you all did too. Let me know what you think.